Welcome, everyone, to our June 2026 meeting of Council. To start the official proceedings, I acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, of which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. Present today, Councillors Maltby, Maddock, Cordy, Walker, Anea, Driscoll and myself, and also a warm welcome to our new Interim Director of Healthy Communities, Kath Skinner. Welcome. Apologies, leaves of absent. Councillor Hastwell is an apology for tonight's meeting. Declarations of interest and conflicts of interest, councillors. There are none. So item 4, confirmation of minutes.
Mayor, the unconfirmed minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held at 6:30 p.m. on the 19th of May 2026 at the Mount Alexander Shire Civic Centre have been circulated. The unconfirmed minutes have also been posted on the Mount Alexander Shire Council's website. And Mayor, I'd like to move that the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 19th of May 2026 be confirmed.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Anea. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So item 5, acknowledgements. I'd like to thank our Chief Executive Officer, Darren Fuzzard, for his years of service in this role. It's been a great pleasure to work with you, Darren, and I know my entry onto council was made a lot smoother by your professionalism, your geniality and your general good humour and professionalism all round. So thank you from me. We wish you all the best with your future endeavours. Would any other councillors like to add to that? Councillor Driscoll.
There's a bit silent then. Thanks, Mayor. Look, I've said this before. I've worked since 2020 with Darren, and I've, in my careers, had many CEOs. And Darren's well up there, in my opinion, of an excellent CEO. He when I was mayor, and you're new to the job, the governance issues there, and the points that he's able to tell you whilst you're having your first few meetings is fantastic. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Darren. You're very professional, but also you have the ability to form friendships, but keeping it away so it's very professional. I wish you all the best in the future, and don't forget to give me a hoy when you can.
Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. I've been on council the whole time that Darren Fuzzard has been CEO. He's done a fantastic job. He's got a outstanding record with this council, and it might be not a surprise to know that he was offered a new contract, but he's done his work here and moving on to other ventures. But Darren's been a wonderful CEO and an inspiration to both councillors and the staff. So congratulations, Darren. Thank you for your service.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, as a new councillor, I really appreciate the professional advice and guidance you've been to us. You really are a very civil engineer, because I know some that aren't, but it's been very beneficial. And I certainly appreciate and respect somebody that says, I go for something further rather than just sitting there. But thank you for all the time and dedication you've given to us.
Councillor Maddock.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Darren. I think, the impressions of coming into this organisation, I'm not particularly experienced with this, but I'm very grateful, and I think it's a privilege to inherit an organisation that's, one, solvent, and two, heading in really good directions, and I think on particularly some really key issues like housing, and also some of the sort of creativity and ambition of just how we go about funding an organisation like this and keeping it solvent. I think really comes down to, I mean, there's a number of staff that comes down to, but I think particularly your stewardship, Darren. So I know I really appreciate, and I've felt very secure under your stewardship, and yeah, new times are coming. Wishing you all the best.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mayor. This is my second time on council over the last 30 years. And if I was to judge, for want of a better description, the CEOs and the town clerks, Darren certainly is at the top of the list. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Annear.
I won't say much because I'll cry and the CEO might cry. I think, look, I have told Darren before, and in front of people sometimes, how great I think he is. It has been so much more bearable for me, council, having Darren's support. And I think particularly as mayor, the 2 times that I've been mayor, the working relationship with Darren has been phenomenal. I don't think either of us were expecting how many times I would cry in his office, but he rose to that challenge as well. I think it's just been, yeah, it's been fantastic having you as CEO, Darren. I think we'll miss you and I'll miss you. And thank you for everything you've done in the last 10 years. I know we're kind of coming in tail end of it, but the legacy that you're leaving it's really something. And we appreciate everything you've done, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor, and thanks again, Chief. So public time, we do have some public time items. Will someone move that we suspend standing orders?
I move that standing orders be suspended.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby, and a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Walker. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. Okay, so on the printed sheet, we have a question from Laurel Canost. I don't think Laurel's here tonight. No. Can I ask Councillor Annear to read the question, please?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Laurel, for your statement or question. Thank you for considering the suitability of an organic waste system for the Mount Alexander Shire. Permaculture Centre of Excellence. The region of Castlemaine through to Hepburn Shires comprise the home and centre of excellence of the internationally recognised and practiced permaculture closed-loop system, with living inventor/teachers/mentors integrated within the Shire. This extends and includes the regenerative agriculture /keyline practitioners also active in the Shire with leading international reputations. The co-founder of the permaculture movement settled in the district in order to undertake the practical application and proof of concept through the Permaculture Garden Research Project at Meliadora, Hepburn Springs. And then there's a link to that. The proposal to adopt the European import smart city style organic waste system will undermine the 40+ years practical demonstration and work by the local leading permaculture community to implement on a continuous improvement basis the resilient closed-loop recycling systems by which many Shire households live. These systems ensure Castlemaine's food sovereignty and support local habitat for native animal, bird and insect life. Our waste connects us to our climate change footprint and holds us accountable for our use of resources. A commercial approach to organic waste, such as a Shire organic waste system, is rejected on the basis of our region's internationally recognised local permaculture living practice here in Central Victoria. The community must support and build this living centre of excellence as a regional showcase, and the Yimby composting system alternative is one such outcome of community building and neighbourhood resilience permaculture-inspired projects. How can the Shire support the existing regenerative closed-loop systems and community resilience? The Shire's energy is welcomed to integrate complementary systems in the regenerative closed-loop systems already active in the Shire. Suggested areas of support for the Shire residents include fire, investing in a biochar facility to utilise council tree pruning / fire load reduction in surrounding forests would allow activated charcoal to be returned to the mining soils around town and be sold to residents, assisting to meet climate change targets and cool the forest surrounds. And this is a quote: "Taking woody material out of the waste stream and converting it to biochar not only prevents the carbon stored in the wood to be emitted as greenhouse gas, but provides a mechanism to actively draw down carbon from the atmosphere. Furthermore, adding biochar to soils increases their water retention that can be used by plants during periods of drought. This can make farming, horticulture, and roadside plantings more drought resilient, actively cools the surrounding areas, and ensures the long-term viability of agriculture in the Yarra Ranges and beyond." And then there's a link to that. As the charcoal must be activated with biodiverse bacteria using organic waste within the Shire, e.g. worm farm composting at the biochar site, can be implemented with the biochar system. A biochar facility would assist in addressing lessons learned from the Harcourt fires, which stopped 20 metres from the Castlemaine Shire signs due only to change in winds. Surrounding fire load of grass and forest floor are outstripping the CFA ability to contain the fires. The combustible heat intensity of unmanaged community and forested land, state or federal forests, has become an OHS issue for residents and the CFA. Occupational health and safety compelled the region to take action to reduce the risks which have been illuminated in the Shire. A biochar facility would be a measurable yardstick of change for the fire risks posed for the Shire. In addition, the mosaic cool fire burning history of Currayong CFA, New South Wales, may be leading thought for our Shire, and there's another link there. Resurrection of cool burning practices within our Shire, combined with the innovation of biochar production, such as implemented by the Yarra Ranges Shire, can assist as an active response to the heat radiation, OH&S issues, and fire load. See, and then there's another link. Flood. The mining history of the area has contributed to the inability of the surrounding hillsides to hold water. Return of activated charcoal to the soils in the surrounding forest hillsides using keyline / swale design of regenerative practices would enable the rainfall runoff to slow before reaching the town streets and gutters, which add to the creek flooding experienced in our township. Council could additionally apply permaculture best practice to cut in its own curbs and gutters on long hillside streets to redirect the rainfall runoff into nature strips, which could be dug for water reservoir capacity and planted with native pollinators. Focus. The hub, for example, could become a focal point for community permaculture closed-loop resources such as council-activated charcoal, biochar sales, native pollinator seedling collections, and Nalderun natives, books / resources on permaculture, local planting guides, local publishing on permaculture and regenerative agriculture, hives and bee resources, Harcourt cider, horticultural vinegar, 30% vinegar for natural weed reduction rather than pesticides, organisation of community fire load reduction days, yard tidy, grass slashing. Practical observations of existing organic waste systems. Based upon the Bendigo experience, this style of proposed system introduces an additional annual service fee on all residents and penalises those who wish to rejuvenate the hydrophobic mining soils of our town with their own resources, such as organic waste, as opt-out of the service is generally not available without penalty in the form of a fee. Organic waste systems also apparently introduce a licence for Shire or third-party auditors to enter private property to inspect whether compost is being made on premises which opt out of the greenway system. Whether with or without bundled consent, this is clearly a potential for breach of privacy and or property rights where a local council has no right of entry at law. And there's another link. Properties with an organics exemption will incur an annual fee to cover the cost of administrating the exemption process. This includes bin inspections, assessments, audits, and other exemption-related administrative tasks. The fee for the 24-25 financial year is $16. I think that was from City of Greater Bendigo. Collection of organic waste reduces unnecessary landfill/methane production. However, compulsory participation for Shire residents is applied as a result of meeting commercial minimums to make the program viable for the supplier of the service. This does not justify administrative penalties such as opt-out fees or entry onto private land, whether by compelled consent or not, to be applied by the council on behalf of its residents. Thank you for your time, Laurel Canost.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I ask Director of Infrastructure and Development, Michael Annear, to respond to this, please?
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Laurel, for sharing your observations regarding permaculture experiences within Central Victoria, the potential benefits of biochar and opportunities for increasing the circularity within waste management. Consideration will be given to points aligned with Council's future decision on the management of organic waste at a future meeting of Council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Is Edwina Reid here? Hi, welcome. So, each speaker in addressing the council will generally be limited to one question and allowed up to 3 minutes to speak. Extend due courtesy in respect to the council and the processes under which it operates. She'll take direction from myself as chair of the meeting whenever I call upon a speaker to do so, and she'll not attempt to enter into discussion or debate with council. However, councillors may ask questions of clarification of the speaker. Public question time is minuted, so please therefore state your name clearly and state if you're representing a group or organisation, and in a few words what you wish to raise. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. My name is Edwina Reid. I am representing Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club, but I'm also reading a joint statement which is on behalf of the North Castlemaine Cricket Club and the Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee, who unfortunately representatives of those groups were unable to make the meeting tonight. Over the past 12 months, our groups have worked closely with council officers to develop and my statement is in support of the development of the Elsie Palmer Field at Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve, which is an agenda item for tonight's meeting. Over the past 12 months, our groups have worked closely with council officers to develop the concept plans that you see before you tonight. Through this collaboration, we have built a strong working relationship and have a shared vision to improve facilities at Wesley Hill to better support participation in sport, particularly cricket and soccer. Wesley Hill is the largest and most diverse sporting hub in the Shire. It supports cycling, netball, junior football, cricket and soccer, as well as school events and informal community recreation. The indoor stadium also hosts a range of activities, including basketball, badminton, netball and martial arts. While this project has been driven by the significant growth in soccer participation, the need for upgraded amenities has long been identified by the North Castlemaine Cricket Club. Currently, there is only a small portable building with one toilet and no change facilities, limiting the club's ability to grow, particularly in attracting female players. The turf wicket at Elsie Palmer is recognised as one of the best in Central Victoria, and as such, Cricket Victoria have reached out with expression to host State Country Week carnivals, representative games and talent pathway games at the Oval if improved facilities were available. The situation is also challenging for soccer. This year, 79 junior games will be played at Wesley Hill, plus finals, averaging 5 games each Saturday, with some days hosting up to 9. With multiple games overlapping, there are often several hundred people on site at once, all relying on a single toilet. In addition, poor drainage at the field has already caused match cancellations. Improvements to drainage, expansion of the field and lighting are essential to support current and future use, particularly as the ground at Tewton is also deteriorating rapidly. We've just cancelled training tonight after we've come in wet, and we'll probably have to cancel games this weekend. A multi-use pavilion with a social space would benefit not only cricket and soccer, but also other users of the reserve and the broader community. All 3 stakeholder groups strongly support these much needed upgrades and ask Council to endorse the concept plans and progress towards the next stage of design. Thank you.
Thanks, Edwina. We note those points and thank you for bringing them to us tonight. Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor tonight? Okay, so do we have a motion to resume standing orders?
So moved.
It's Councillor Maltby and seconded by Councillor Walker. All those in favour and against? Okay, we resume standing orders. So we have no items at petitions and letters and no committee reports. So moving on to officer reports. And 9.1.1, the adoption of the 2026-2027 budget. Councillor Maddock, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Just got to get on the right page. Forgive me. Okay, having prepared the proposed budget 2026-2027 and having received and heard from submitters and considered all submissions received, Council is now able to consider the formal adoption of the budget 2026-2027. The budget has been prepared having considered Council's priorities and commitments, as well as strategic documents such as the Asset Plan 2025 to 2029, the Council Plan 2025 to 2029, and the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan 2025 to 2029. The 2026-2027 budget is in line with Council's 10-year financial plan, which supports the community vision, the Council Plan 2025 to 2029, and key strategies. The budget is a sustainable and strategic plan that seeks to build on existing initiatives to provide important works and services to our community, as well as prioritising significant long-term infrastructure projects that enhance the livability of our community. It is a very long motion, so I might take it as read, Mayor, if that's okay. I'll just read out the first two, if that's okay. So I'll move that this council adopts the budget 2026-2027, including the schedule of fees and charges annexed to this resolution in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 and relevant regulations. 2, gives public notice to this decision to adopt the budget 2026-2027, and noting that there is a further 12 points below that, which I'll take as read.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The budget is quite an epic process. Probably more so for officers than for the councillors, but definitely for councillors. And I think it's made particularly tough given the financial pressures on this organisation and probably almost every local government council across the state, with how do we phrase it? Dwindling revenue raising capacities. That are essentially cut year on year, which just pinch, and we really notice it at budget time, where we're making really tough decisions, often around not so great amounts of money, but we just can't fund everything. To that end, we've made some really tough decisions, and we haven't made any of them lightly. There were all the asks from officers and from the community had their merits, and I'd say most of them were excellent. And it is often heartbreaking to look at what we can and can't fund through the budget. I'd like to highlight just a few things that stand out to me. There's many line items in this budget. I'd like to, in no particular order, point out the Children's Winter Festival, which is so important to bring families together, families with young kids at a time of year it's hard to leave the house. It's good to have a reason and get out in the community, and that has lots of benefits. The Homelessness Project Officer, funding for the LGBTIQ+ steering group, the Middle Years Plan, the Youth Plan, Early Years Plan, Active Transport Design Program, and something that's very close to my heart is support for the Wesley Hill Play Space, which I understand is for the design and to move forwards with some of the asks in their master plan. And just on that, because it is in my ward, I would really like to thank those community members for their advocacy, which has been running over years. They've done an excellent job collecting and compiling ideas from the community and presenting it to us. And I think it's it's a very worthy and would be a very valued asset for this community and visitors to this shire. I think other councillors will speak to other items, and I'll let them do that. So thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thank you, Mayor. Certainly endorsing the eloquent words of Councillor Maddock. We are, like people everywhere, in a difficult financial time. We've managed to keep our budget in the black, which is very important. I would highlight two areas. One is under Welcoming Leanganuk, an allocation for starting activity in culturally and linguistically diverse communities. And in the future, there'll be a resolution coming to council to activate that. And secondly, Soldiers Memorial Park, which unfortunately the irrigation we couldn't afford last financial budget. We have got it into this one and look forward to that occurring because we know that's going to be needed for quite some time yet, along with other facilities. And as Councillor Maddock mentioned, it's really, we did spend hours on it. It gets really tough having to cut things that you particularly think are important. And there are three or four I listed to mention, but decided no, I won't mention, but it just is really hard because they're very valid. There's been a lot of community input into this budget, and we hope that stays up. Even if people can be disappointed what they submit perhaps doesn't fit, we hope one day we might have the money. But it's overall a good budget touching a lot of important bases and keeps us as a well-functioning council, and I second it.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to congratulate councillors and the team, finance team, on the budget. It's a great effort. Very, very trying circumstances, but I'd particularly like to acknowledge the work of Director Corporate Services Julie Landy and Manager Finance Keith Caldwell. They've done a fantastic job, along with the directors and the executive, but also all the managers that have contributed to the budget. It's a really sound document, and if you're looking for bedtime reading, I commend it to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. So this is a $56 million budget, and we deliver over 100 services, and we've ended up balancing the books. As Councillor Cordy referred to, I also want to thank all councillors for their respect in our many meetings that we had, and for their listening skills. And we still are all talking to each other, so that's a really good thing, because it does get a little bit heated, because we're all trying to put the things that are dear to our hearts and our community's heart. Just a couple of things. As Councillor Maddock suggested, the Homelessness Project Officer, I think that's a really good thing going forward. In my little patch, Livable Newstead, the establishment of Privy Street trees, and also the upgraded Newstead levy design. And I want to thank the finance team and Director Julie for a lot of patience for all of our councillors. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Anea.
Thank you, Mayor. Really, just, I guess, to reiterate what other councillors have said, it's a challenging process. It's getting more challenging each year. I wasn't very experienced at budgets when I started council, and I think it is getting more and more challenging year on year. And that it is so hard. I think what we've seen each year is how much need there is in the community and within council itself, and how much how many great ideas there are, things that we look at and go, that would be amazing. But then balancing that with the fact that there is just so little money to spare to do almost anything additional. I think that's quite hard to reconcile, particularly when you hear, $56 million budget. It sounds like a lot of money, but most of it is spent on just doing what we need to do every day to keep the Shire functioning. And it's sad. It saddens me that we don't have more money to spend on all the additional things that we know there is demand for, desire for, and that would improve our community. I think we all recognise that it's going to continue getting harder on local governments, particularly small councils like us. Our ability to raise revenue is limited, and I guess the responsibilities that we are managing are increasing, often without resourcing to manage those things. I think so many of our discussions that we have, particularly at budget time, are around, we're having to have make such difficult decisions around relatively small amounts of money for community or council projects, but we just don't have it. And that's really sad. I think for me, reflecting on it is what councils could do if they were funded a little bit better. I really feel that we're put in a position that is really difficult because we can't do all the things that we would like to, because there just isn't the resourcing available. And I think that's going to continue to get harder and harder as things go the way they are. But we do our best, and we do have to make decisions that aren't very nice a lot of the time because, again, we recognise that need. We all live here. We see the things that could be better, and it can be very difficult to be realistic, I guess, and to make those tough decisions with limited money. I think we'll continue to advocate for more untied council funding. That is funding that we can spend on the things that we identify as needed and hopefully pass on to community for broad benefit. We have done, and again, we've done a great job this year. I think, as others have said, the fact that we can go through what is a grueling process for everyone, and I'm sure that we get just a small fragment of that compared to many of the officers and executive team, but we do get there all together and make decisions for the whole Shire, and I think that's really impressive. It's such a bittersweet feeling always, I think, budget, because it is exciting to have another year financially planned out, but it is that sadness too, and the things that we're not able to fund and the things that we're not able to do. And I think just that recognition and just the fact that we need to keep talking about it, the fact that local government could be more if we were resourced to be what we should be. Echoing others as well, thank you so much to Julie and her directorate, and particularly Keith and the finance team, who make it as easy as possible for us with what is quite a complex thing. And also, we're not always the easiest to manage. I think the phrase like herding cats is sometimes thrown around at budget time, but it has been a real pleasure this year. I think the team has made it as easy as possible for us and has enabled us to have some fantastic conversations and make those hard decisions, come up with a balanced budget. But at the same time, I guess, just keep acknowledging that there is more that we could do if we were empowered financially to do more.
Thank you, Councillor Annear. Councillor Matic, you have a right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, particularly Councillor Annear. Very, very well put. I'll just speak to one more item, which is almost a byline. It's very easy to miss, but it's the addition of low-income concession cards under the definition of pensioner concession. So previously, pensioner concessions received discounts on some fees, and you can see them in the fees schedule. There's not heaps, but there's a few, and some of them are meaningful. Big thanks to my councillor colleagues for supporting my call to include low-income concession card holders in that list, who are some of the most vulnerable members of our community. And I think we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis here. It's been going on for so long now. It's almost some people get sick of hearing about it, but the impacts of that cost of living and that time passing on people who are being pinched by it only consolidates over time. And we're years in now, so it's pinching very, very hard. And while I wish an organisation like ours could fix that problem, we need to be realistic. But we also need to be looking at where we can make a positive impact. And though it's a small impact, I think it's a real one. And I thank my council colleagues for supporting that. And hopefully we can look for other opportunities to do this too. Thank you, Mayor. And also thank you, Julie. Thank you, Keith and the team for your work. Cheers.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Okay, let's put to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And again, to reiterate, the comments made by fellow councillors, it is a tough process, as you've pointed out. But thanks again to the team, especially the indefatigable Keith Caldwell, and Julie Landy as Director of Corporate Services, for bringing this together. And despite the points about what we're not able to fund, I think it's important to underline the point that we have a balanced budget again, and that's testament to the strength of the organisation. So moving on to 9.2. 9.2.1 is the 2026 Mount Alexander Shire Council Investment Prospectus. Councillor Driscoll, could I ask you to introduce this, please?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I seek Council's endorsement of the 2026 Mount Alexander Shire Council Investment Prospectus, and it's an advocacy document for the upcoming state government election, and it's focusing on projects that are investment ready and strategically positioned for external investment opportunities. So Council has developed this investment prospectus as a coordinated advocacy funding tool to support the delivery of Council's projects. The document brings together a target suite of 11 investment-ready projects, and so I'd like it's clear and unified on its platform for advocacy, and I'd like this to recommend, Mayor, that Council 1 approves the 2026 Mount Alexander Shire Council Investment Prospectus as a key advocacy document for use in presenting investment opportunities to the state government, funding bodies and strategic partners. And 2, notes that the investment prospectus will be reviewed periodically to reflect emerging priorities, project readiness and investment opportunities. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Driscoll, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Look, so once again, we as a council got together and argued the toss on certain things, and we landed on 11 projects, and I'll just mention some of these. One of them, one of the 11 is the Castlemaine Soccer Hub and multi-purpose field upgrade. That's at a cost of 13.67 million. Campbell's Creek Recreational Reserve Pavilion upgrade, 3.5 million. One that's close to my heart is the 6567 Templeton Street, Castlemaine. It's a council affordable housing development opportunity, potentially for 21 long-term affordable council-owned land in Castlemaine. The industrial land strategy, and also Eddie Street Creative Business Precinct for 2 million. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now? Or... Okay. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Anea.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a great document. It's such a handy one to have, one for the election and for advocacy, but also just to organise some of our priorities, and particularly the ones that we know we cannot self-fund. I think there's a great bit in the start under the heading "An Invitation to Invest in Mount Alexander Shire," and it really talks about why we need this. Around, much of our infrastructure was developed for a smaller population. Obviously, we've got heaps more people living here than they used to. Many of our facilities are ageing and no longer meet contemporary standards. We've heard about that quite a lot. particularly as participation in local sport and recreation continues to grow. So, you know, the types of things I think that are presented in this prospectus, they're things that we just could not fund ourselves. They are beyond our ability to raise revenue for. It is just not achievable. They are things that we would require investment, probably from other levels of government, to make happen. And I think having a document like this that clearly states what these priorities are at this moment in time, I think that's important too. This is kind of it'll be a living document, I guess. It's not always going to stay like this as things change and priorities, new priorities emerge and other things, you know, hopefully are achieved. This document will change over time, but I think having it all together like this, and just it's very easy to present. And I hope that having done all this background work, and particularly thanking Jade, our grants coordinator, who's done a huge amount on this, putting it together in such a appealing way, and really explaining the need for these projects and the benefit to the broad Mount Alexander Shire community. Yeah, there's such a lot of good in here. And I think this is one of the things I was kind of talking about before, these things that we can't fund ourselves. We just don't have a hope in hell, but they would have just such incredible value to the community. And this is things like the Castlemaine Soccer Hub and multi-purpose field upgrade. You know, we've got the rec reserves. Under health and wellbeing, I think it's such an important one, and it's so difficult to advocate for sometimes because we know that such a lot of these goals are either not our responsibility or just completely out of our reach. They really will take that kind of collaborative work with state and federal government. But something like an early years hub, so development of an integrated early years hub to expand childcare, kindergarten and family services, reduce wait lists and improve access to early intervention support across the Shire. That would be fantastic. That would be such a game changer, particularly as we know how many people are struggling to access childcare, kinder, and the services that their families and their children need to really thrive. Mental health service access improvements. And this, another one that, you know, throughout my whole life living here, this has been a priority to get more mental health support services here. And we still are advocating for it. Because it just hasn't happened where, you know, we're just close enough to places like Bendigo that we do fall into the catchment. But as anyone who either has had a mental health problem or supported someone knows, it is so crucial to have those services place-based, and, you know, getting someone who is not travelling well, particularly if they're in crisis, to a service not located close by can be very, very difficult. Family violence service access. This is another one, you know, it's kind of, you know, it can be very easy to overlook, I think, as not a priority or not a problem. But for the people in our Shire who are experiencing family violence, you know, it's life-changing. It would be life-changing to have those locally delivered family violence services here for similar reasons around, you know, it being quite difficult to access non-place-based services. You know, these ones, in some ways, they're trickier to advocate for funding because they are not concrete. You know, we can't just plan it and design it and kind of have a picture of it. We know that the need is there, but we don't know exactly what it'll look like because it is largely out of our control. But I'm so happy that in this document, those kind of things around health and wellbeing are given the prominence that I think they deserve amongst all these other fantastic projects that we would love investment in, because everything on this list I can see making a huge difference in our community in lots and lots of different ways. And I think having a document like this that, you know, you can really just hand to someone and go, this is what we need, please help us with these things. It feels really good to have this right now. And I really thank everyone who's worked on it, but particularly Jade for putting together such a fantastic document that I really hope leads to some investment in some of these projects that I believe will have, huge benefit across our Shire. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Anea. Any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Maltby.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just highlight two infrastructure projects, which is part of the 11 that we are trying to get funded. 65 to 67 Templeton Street, which is a council-enabled affordable housing development, delivering 21 long-term affordable rental apartments on council land. And the second, again, is an important thing. It's the Pyrenees Highway intersection upgrade, Diamond Gully, Mackenzie's Hill. And that's the delivery of critical road and intersection upgrades to unlock residential growth, supporting up to 1,000 new homes over time. That's 15 million and the Templeton Street was 18 million. So we've got the projects, we just now need the funding.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Driscoll, your right of reply. Okay. Thanks, Councillor Maddock.
Just to pick up more on the early years hub, I'd like to speak to, and I think Rosie's done a very good job of pointing out some of those services that are so needed in the community, and one that's very close to my heart is the need for the early years hub. This project would deliver a coordinated early years infrastructure response through the development of a new early years hub. The hub will provide additional childcare and kindergarten places, co-located with family services and flexible early intervention supports, while improving access for vulnerable children and families. I think it's my family's just come out of childcare related stresses, and it's rare that you meet a family that isn't either in childcare related stress or has recently been in it, and it has a devastating impact on families, you know, at some of the most vulnerable times in their lives, particularly impacting on capacity to earn income. So I really applaud this council for getting behind that cause so succinctly, and of course it correlates with our early years expansion feasibility study, which I hope we'll learn more about soon. But there's no doubt we have a huge need in our shire, and would absolutely welcome investment, as I'm sure many would. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Driscoll, your right of reply.
Well, thanks, Mayor. Just want to point out this investment prospectus to not commit council to any expenditure. Rather, it's a document that we can go around for advocacy and trying to find funds from the state and the feds. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried unanimously. And just noting that through this work, Council has identified the need for a single coordinated document. And that's what this is, a single coordinated document that clearly articulates priority projects, several of which, councillors, you've spoken to this evening, and provides that consistent platform for engagement with state and federal governments, funding bodies and strategic partners. And thanks to Jade and the team for bringing together this lovely publication. So 9.2.2, a petition asking Mount Alexander Shire Council to join the Super Tuesday Bike Count 2027, April 2026. Councillor Maddock, would you introduce this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A petition requesting Council to join the Super Tuesday data collection program in 2027 was tabled and accepted at the meeting of Council on the 16th of April 2026. The petition seeks Council to join the Bicycle Network Super Tuesday count to provide data to inform the state government on the benefits of investing in cycling infrastructure within Mount Alexander Shire, to better demonstrate need and secure funding for safer cycling infrastructure. The following report responds to the request and outlines the recommended approach for the long-term collection of data for multiple active transport modalities. There's a recommendation, and I move that Council 1 approves the continued use of the active transport data approves the continued use of the active transport data capture activities being completed and coordinated by the Mount Alexander Shire Council. 2, notes data captured by the Mount Alexander Shire Council will be shared with the Department of Transport and Planning and Bicycle Network. 3, notes that council officers will write to the lead petitioner on the outcome of this report.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Maddock, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In looking at the options for capturing, and I'm quoting from the report here, in looking at the options for capturing of field data over multiple years, council officers considered joining Super Tuesday counts. However, due to the cost of participating in the Super Tuesday count, it was identified that Mount Alexander Shire Council would only be able to confirm participation in financial year 2025 and 2026. Without ongoing budget allocations, there is no security to engage in Super Tuesday counts, and the benefit of capturing data annually to understand trends will be lost. As an alternative, council officers established an in-house data capture model which enabled volunteers to participate alongside officers. This provided flexibility in determining what data would be captured, as well as the ability to implement over multiple years without the reliance on a third-party provider. Following the 2026 data capture event, council officers remain of the view that the internal delivery of the data capture event is the most cost-effective to Mount Alexander Shire Council and the most suitable model to continue with in 2027 and beyond. Data to be made, sorry, I'm starting to read notes now. I'll leave it there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, Mayor.
Thank you.
There's been a lot of media coverage about the surge of EV auto sales in the last few months. I think it's also worth noting, it's been reported to me that the sales of EV bicycles in the Shire have doubled in the last few months. And I'd suggest there are two reasons for this. One is we've noted the tight financial circumstances and young families can't afford two cars. And secondly, they're environmentally concerned. And these EV bikes are very beneficial because it allows them to take children or goods on the back. And certainly we're talking about making bike paths safer, but it also raises the importance of us to have a good handle on active transport and the usage, which we can continue to anticipate to grow, and to be actively monitoring and managing that. We've also got strong bicycle networks in the Shire. And so in this regards, I'm very happy to support a motion which talks about doing the monitoring and calculation of bike users so it can help and inform our planning, and strengthening partnerships with bike user groups. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Maddock, your right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Walker, and thanks to the petitioners and the lead petitioner as well. I think what this petition really demonstrates to me, at least as an individual, is that there is massive support for cycling and the upgrading of cycling infrastructure in our Shire. As a councillor, what's most important to me is that I have good data. I'm sure my colleagues would agree that I have good data to make decisions on, and I'm sure the officers would agree as well. I'm a bit more agnostic as to how that data comes to me, provided that is good quality data. And I have some assurance here that, and please correct me, Director Anir, if I'm misquoting, but that we will consider running our in-house data collection on the same day as Super Tuesday, which would allow for cross LGA comparisons, which if you do on different days doesn't work so well because weather and things like that will impact the numbers of active transport users on the streets. I think what I really share, I think with a lot of active transport users is that there does appear to be an underinvestment in cycling infrastructure. And I think that's a nation, if not global wide phenomena, where our streets seem to be excellent and maintained and working really well. Yet there's a whole list that I'm sure any cyclist could list of problems and really hazardous spots for bike riding. So really appreciate this petition and the enthusiasm of the cycle advocacy networks here. And I hope the data that we collect will be just as good and just as useful, and personally would be committed to revisiting it if that wasn't the case. And then just a last point that I also have assurance, because I know this was a concern of the lead petitioner too, around data transparency, that if a third party were to approach the council seeking this data for a use that aligned with our purposes, that we would be happy to consider that. I think Michael's nodding. I think I've worded that right. Is that yeah? So I hope that goes some way to give confidence that that we're going to get good data here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. So we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. So 9.2.3 is the 2025 to 2029 Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan Annual Plan Progress Report Quarter 3. And I'll ask Councillor Anir to introduce this one, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2025 to 2029 Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan Annual Plan, in brackets the annual plan, outlines the actions for the financial year that will be undertaken as priorities in alignment with the strategic priorities of the 2025 to 2029 Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. In quarter 3, 2025 to 2026, all 18 current year actions are in progress and remain on track to be completed by 30 June 2026. And I will move that Council notes the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan Annual Plan Progress Report for 25-26, quarter 3.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Anir, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Thank you, ma'am. So each council term, we, as well as a council plan, we develop a municipal public health and wellbeing plan that provides a shared vision and coordinated strategy for protecting, promoting and improving the health and wellbeing of all residents across the Shire. So we completed our municipal public health and wellbeing plan last year, and we're kind of coming towards the end of our first year of it. This report is the progress report for quarter 3, so a little bit before now. We're doing really well in terms of our accomplishing the actions that we set. We in quarter 3 we completed 13 actions, and there are a couple outstanding, but we're on track to complete them all, which is fantastic. I think it's another difficult one, I guess, in many ways, because council plays a part in health and wellbeing, but again, not all of it. So a lot of it is around working with other stakeholders and health providers, as well as advocacy. Honestly, a lot of what we need to do through the plan is advocacy. We've got 6 focus areas: improving wellbeing, increasing healthy eating and food security, increasing active living, reducing harm from alcohol and drug use, tackling climate change and its impacts on health, and preventing violence and promoting gender equity. So this year, we selected 18 actions as our annual plan. One of the things that I think, put more pressure on it this financial year was that we adopted our council plan, a municipal public health and wellbeing plan, later in the piece, so not in June last year. So we have had a smaller amount of time in which to accomplish these things, but we're doing a good job. Some of the things that have been completed, and I guess I say completed, but it's also many of these will continue. I guess many of these are ongoing actions. Something like this, for example, the project name is Advocacy for Mental Health Undertaken. So we will always be advocating for more mental health services in the Shire until more mental health services are in the Shire. But we've done what we needed to satisfy this project, and will continue to. There's a lot in this priority plan around food insecurity, because we know many people are affected by that at the moment, and particularly we know that the access to food pantries and other programs where you can get food free or cheap, they're all growing. That need is growing. Another one that we're very keen to keep advocating for and hope it gets funded is around the Healthy Loddon Campaspe, and particularly the active living census, which was undertaken last year. The data from this is so useful in informing, I guess, decisions and directions that we pursue, given what we learned from it around, I guess, risk areas, around things that are going well. It just helps, the data is so helpful in kind of understanding where the greatest needs lie. Another one that I'm really thrilled about is the Council's Alcohol Harm Prevention Action Plan that has been implemented. This was just successfully delivered through Vic Health funding. And I think, data often shows that our Shire has, an above average amount of people probably using alcohol irresponsibly or overindulging. It's very common in more rural regional areas because it just is. I think particularly in our young people, there's often been some issues around drug and alcohol use, but data I've seen more recently also shows that us adults are giving the teenagers a run for their money. Another one, expanding smoke-free areas in public spaces in the Shire. I think, again, this is another one, and I think particularly as the landscape of smoking changes and more people are vaping, which I find incredibly annoying because it feels like there are different rules for vaping, but we haven't quite all agreed on them yet. So things like this are really important, and I really value the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan because I think so much of the time, what council does is concerned with infrastructure and, bricks and mortar things. And I think that is part of our role, absolutely. But the health and wellbeing of the people who live here is of paramount importance as well. And whatever we can do through this plan and through, in whatever way we can to try and make things better, whether that's things that we can do ourselves or in partnership or through advocacy. So I'm really pleased to recommend this to my councillors at the end of Q3. It's looking really good. I'm sure we're going to meet our target for Q4, which is approaching rapidly. And then there will be a new action plan for next year. So thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Anea. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Councillor Anea has well and truly covered the issue.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Okay, Councillor Anea, you have a right of reply.
I'm not going to do it, Mayor. I've said enough. Thank you.
Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour and against, and that's carried. And thank you, Councillor Anea, for speaking so eloquently and fulsomely about that. You're right on all points, and especially when you talk about some of the challenges and harms in our Shire that we as a council have a role in trying to contribute towards amelioration. I know that you have the support of all of us around the table when you speak about those, and thank you for giving voice to those tonight. So 9.3 under natural environments, 9.3.1 is Development Contributions Policy Review. Councillor Driscoll, may I ask you to introduce this, please?
Yeah, sure, Mayor. Thank you. The purpose of this paper is to present the reviewed Development Contribution Policy 2026 for Council for adoption. The current Development Contribution Policy was adopted by Council in December 2022 and is now due for review. The Development Contribution Policy sets out Council's approach to the fair and equitable collection of development contributions to fund essential higher order infrastructure where land is developed within the Shire. The review has been completed and for the reasons presented in this report, which I'll go into shortly, finds that the development contribution policy remains effective and fit for purpose. Therefore, no changes are proposed to the development contribution policy. And Mayor, I'd like to propose that the council, 1, adopts the Development Contribution Policy 2026, and 2, directs the Chief Executive Officer to write to the Minister for Planning to advocate for the infrastructure contributions reforms being extended from metropolitan to rural and regional areas. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder for this?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Driscoll, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Yeah, sure, Mayor. Thank you. Look, Mount Alexander Shire is experiencing population growth and demand in new and residential development, which we all know. And this also includes infrastructure for roads, shared paths, drainage infrastructure, and community facilities. As I mentioned before, the Development Contribution Policy was first prepared and adopted in 2022 to ensure a fair and equitable approach to collection of development contributions within our Shire. At the time of writing, Council has 3 completed infrastructure plans, one for the Diamond Gully Structure Plan, one for Campbell's Creek South area, and one for Harcourt. These areas are the ones that are experiencing the most greenfield developments. So this Development Contribution Policy formally establishes Council's approach to collecting contributions via the 173 agreement process. The Strategic Planning Unit has led this review, and they looked at a number of issues related to collection of development contributions, including the current legislation, collection of contributions across the whole Shire, and the opportunities and challenges for each collection mechanism. And they came down to this. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Maltby, would you want to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Maddock.
Thank you, Mayor. I think particularly in our funding climate, it's essential that we're raising these fees from developments. I'm aware that we, to all intents and purposes, never recover the funds that we expend in supporting particularly greenfield development, which require new roads and new facilities through the increase of rates, which puts us in a difficult position where we need more housing, we need to house people. But we also have dwindling capacity to raise funds to fund the additional services they need. So I think developer contributions are very necessary, and I would prefer to see a much wider application of them. But I understand that there's challenges around how they're administered and rolled out that make that not such an easy thing to attain, particularly at the scale of our council here. So yeah, happy to support this. I think it's something. It's a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Anea.
Thanks, Mayor. I think, increasingly there is need for input from other sources when it comes to the type of infrastructure we need when development occurs, especially kind of, large development that really changes the nature of an area. I think, what is really worth highlighting and what is challenging at present is that development contributions can only be sought in areas covered by an infrastructure plan that we've prepared at the moment, of which we've got 3. So at present, this policy only applies to those areas, which is fine. And I'm really glad, as has been said, that we have this mechanism. But I think, given the rate of development and the way development is occurring, I think it will probably be necessary in future to look more broadly than that, which is why I think any advocacy we can do around that is also a really good thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anea. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now?
Yeah. This development contribution policy, just for example, the Harcourt infrastructure plan area is part of it, and the projected population of Harcourt in the next 5 years is something like 5,000 people. So there will be lots of subdivision. But if it's only a 3-lot or 2-lot subdivision, the mum and dad developer aren't going to be charged. But it's necessary so that we can get the roads and other infrastructure done.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Driscoll, your right of reply.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. The strategic planning group said with this report came down to try and implement the lowest cost and least resource intensive mechanism, which continues to be the Section 173 agreements pathway, and that's why they're keeping the report. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. So all those in favour and against, and that's carried. And that is an important point that Councillor Driscoll made at the end there about Section 173. In our case, as a rural council, it is the most effective way to apply these developer contributions. And to come back to a point that Councillor Maltby made earlier when looking at the investment prospectus, the point about the investment needed to upgrade the signals on the Malden Road at Mackenzie's Hill. And we think about, and Councillor Maltby mentioned hundreds or even 1,000 potential lots in that precinct of Diamond Gully, Mackenzie's Hill, and how that single piece of infrastructure is really key to unlocking that. And we think about the flow-on effects from there of housing in those growth areas, and we've just been through the budget. We're all aware of how much it costs to build curb and channel, how much it costs to lay a new Macadam Road, or how much it costs to build a metre of footpath, and these kind of contributions really are essential for those growth areas. Thank you, councillors, for speaking so thoroughly about this. And also a big shout to Nathan Lord and the officer responsible, and Georgie also, that's Coordinator of Strategic Planning, Nathan Lord, and Manager of Development Services, Georgie Johnson, and Director of Infrastructure and Development, Michael Anea. Thank you to the team for bringing this excellent report. So then moving on to 9.4, infrastructure. And this is 9.4.1, approval of the Elsie Palmer Field design for cricket and soccer. Sorry, for soccer and cricket. Councillor Walker, would you like to introduce this, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The purpose of this report is to present a concept design for approval for facility improvements at Elsie Palmer Field, Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve, allowing for combined soccer and cricket use. The concept plan is stage 2 of the soccer participation and facility feasibility study project, which has been funded by Mount Alexander Shire Council, the state government, and Castlemaine's Goldfields Football Club, with the objective to better understand the current and future facility needs to support soccer participation, site selection for facility expansion, and a concept design to ensure the project is investment ready. The draft concept plan provides for 2 senior soccer pitches, which include space allocation for 4 junior soccer pitches, a turf and synthetic wicket for cricket, and siting for associated infrastructure. The concept plan has been published for community consultation with overwhelming positive feedback. Suggestions for improvements to the design have been included in the final draft. Following community consultation, cost estimates have been developed, which include site-specific construction works, including creek realignment and retaining walls. And I recommend that Council 1 notes the feedback received from the wider community consultation process. 2, approves the concept design for soccer and cricket facilities at the Elsie Palmer Field, Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve. 3, notes the stage approach for delivery of the overall project. Stage 1, sports field and associated infrastructure. Stage 2, pavilion and landscaping. 4, notes the estimated cost of $13.65 million in 2026 figures to deliver the works included in the recommendation concept design. 5, notes that advocacy continues to state and federal government for funding for upgraded facilities at Elsie Palmer Field, Wesley Hill Recreation Reserve. And 6, notes that Chewton Soldiers Memorial Park will be retained for soccer use and that future upgrades will be required at this site to ensure it is compliant and fit for purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Neer. Councillor Walker, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club is the Shire's only soccer club and is currently based at Chewton Soldiers Memorial Park, which has been the club's home since the early 2000s. It's a single-size soccer pitch. It's overused and is significantly impacting the Shire's ability to maintain surface quality and playability. So funding from the Shire, state government, Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club has been utilised to deliver the soccer participation and feasibility study and the detailed concept plan for facilities at a site selected from recommendations in the feasibility study. In that regard, Elsie Palmer is an ideal site. I note earlier in the budget we approved funding for irrigation at Chewton Soldiers Memorial. We note that it will require long-term usage, but it would always be a problem site given it's the upside down country and not the greatest soil. I'd also note, and I mentioned in talking to the budget, we had a funding for cultural and linguistically diverse. And if anything speaks to the benefits of multiculturalism, it has to be the Socceroos at the moment, which I trust we're all embracing, even though I keep a bit of Bafana in my heart, but aside from that. But what we know is that soccer is the growth sport of the region. It's a gender inclusive sport. It's a sport that's been taken up by young people with great enthusiasm, and it does need decent facilities. Like every other major investment in sport, it's going to be a challenge to get the money, but we need to commit to this. We need to take it forward. It does have a lot of support, and therefore I'm happy to move the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now. Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a fantastic project. It is very, very easy to support because not just because the need for additional full-size soccer pitches is so apparent, but because I feel the way the concepts have been done and hearing about, the user groups being able to work together alongside council staff, it's really heartening that people are willing to share their space, I think is the crux of it. I think so often there are, huge complications around use of assets, and it's really heartening that the users involved in stage 1 of this proposal have all come to the table and kind of gone, yep, we will share our space. These are the things that are priorities for us. And, some of the priorities have led to some challenges, but they're not insurmountable ones. And I think demonstrated through the consultation that's been done for the concept, the feedback received, it has led to tweaks and changes to kind of ensure that everyone is feeling like, they're being heard and that their needs are being taken into consideration. It is very easy to support this. I spend, a huge amount of my time driving my daughter around to soccer all over the state. She spent a year with Castlemaine that I'm very grateful for, and big parts of me wish she was still playing locally because it's a beautiful club with a really inclusive atmosphere. I felt good being part of that club just as a parent. And I think that is so important as well because empowering your kids to do the thing that they love is so much easier when you yourself feel empowered to be part of that same club. And also I'm just really sick of driving to Epsom, which is just so far away from anywhere. What I will say about Epsom though, and my experience of driving Aurora around all over the place, there are some really nice facilities out there for mixed use sport. And I think given the huge growth in soccer in our shire over the last few years, and I'm sure there will be another upswell after the World Cup or during the World Cup, as we saw after the Matildas experience. We really deserve good facilities here for the kids and adults and families and the club. I think that is what is needed, and what I'm seeing here, both the redevelopment of Elsie Palmer and the works that need to be done at the current shooting ground will provide what is needed for the soccer club, as well as ensuring that the current users, particularly the cricket club, still have what they need. And I think, it is really easy to support this in so many ways, particularly when, we're kind of coming off the back of another crunchy decision around a recreation reserve. It is nice to have one that is not as crunchy, and that I can just go, this is all fine. It's going to be okay. I think I'm not even concerned about funding, honestly. I think I think it'll happen. And I look forward, hopefully, to not very far in the future when we have these facilities in our shire for, not just for all the people playing now, but, generations to come. I think it's just going to be amazing. And I really look forward to this project continuing, hopefully, and being funded and built and all of the things so that we can go and be proud of facilities in our shire, and that will get lots of use. And that's why I'm supportive of it, and I hope that you are too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Annear. And sorry, I should have asked this question before you spoke. Is there any opposition to this motion tonight? Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, this is going to be a great project. It builds on project that the junior sports facilities that have been built by council over many years. The soccer pitch has been talked about for several years now. And I'd like to congratulate the Castlemaine Goldfields Football Club for their advocacy for this project. They've presented to council on probably 2 or 3 times over the journey, and they've presented such an overwhelming and strong case in terms of the club membership and participation. And let's face it, it is the world game, and it's really going to be a wonderful facility. So, I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. 20 years ago, I coached the under-12s at the Castlemaine Goldfields, and there was 22 players, but we only had one team, and only 2 of those players were females. But now, the Castlemaine Goldfield Football Club has a strong level of female participation with 192 registered players in 2025, and the North Castlemaine Cricket Club is increasing their female membership and successfully fielded a women's team in 25-26 competition, which is fantastic. With high levels of female participation, that will be a key to ensure that fair access principles are implemented at each stage of this project. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Walker, your right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. And recalling Councillor Annear's comments and noting that it's also a multi-use facility where we've got a couple of sports have come together to support this, which adds to the weight of it. And I thank the councillors for their other comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Walker. Okay, all those in favour and against, and that's carried unanimously. And as someone who has attempted to play cricket, only because of my poor skills, I use the word attempted. I've always loved playing on Elsie Palmer, and when I look at the master plan for this, I'm so excited to maybe get the Guildford B team up again to play some more games there. One thing I want to point out that I'm really excited about this plan is the inclusion of the playground in between the 2 ovals Gee, that would have made such a huge difference when I was dragging my toddler daughter along to cricket matches and kind of watching from the wicket, what's she up to, what's she up to, if there was a playground. That's a really fantastic inclusion in this plan. And thank you, councillors, for your good words on this. So moving on to 9.4.2 is a procurement exemption for Frederick Street Indigenous artwork. Councillor Maddock, would you introduce this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for a sole source procurement exemption to appoint JANDAC for the provision of Jarrah artwork, artist management and the co-design component of the Frederick Street Mechanics Lane redevelopment project. The value of the work is $440,000 excluding GST and was included as a key element in the successful grant application for the project. The redevelopment includes place-based public art elements that have been carefully curated to embed Jarrah voices and perspectives throughout the project. The engagement of JANDAC and enterprise of Jarrah will enable council to meet this objective by ensuring the cultural knowledge, artistic expression and design decisions are led by traditional owners of the land on which the project is situated. And I have a recommendation, and I move that Council 1 approves in accordance with section 8.10, sole sourcing of the Council's procurement policy 2021, the engagement of JANDAC to embed Jarrah cultural values into the Frederick Street and Mechanics Lane redevelopment project, and 2, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute a contract with JANDAC for the provision of Jarrah artwork, artist management and co-design to the value of $440,000 excluding GST for Frederick Street and Mechanics Lane redevelopment project.
Thank you, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Maddock, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Council was successful in receiving a $12.19 million federal government grant through the Regional Precincts and Partnerships Program. The funding is enabling the redevelopment of the Frederick Street and Mechanics Lane streetscape and includes, among other things, the integration of Jarrah art elements into the streetscape. And there's quite a list of them, which is quite exciting. The project presents a significant opportunity to embed Jarrah stories, language and cultural knowledge in the public realm and strengthens the community's understanding of country, fosters cultural visibility and supports reconciliation through tangible action. It ensures that the redevelopment does more than improve physical infrastructure. It becomes a place that reflects thousands of years of custodianship, acknowledges the resilience and continuality of Jarrah culture and creates a more inclusive and truthful representation of the region's identity for current and future generations.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Councillors, do we have any opposition to this motion? Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Thanks, Councillor Anea.
I did think about what I was going to say. What do I think? I think, look, this makes a lot of sense to me, honestly. I feel like given, there's been an amount of frustration frustration and kind of confusion in the community about the Frederick Street project as a whole. And I do get the impression there is still an amount of, people who don't feel that the incorporation of First Nations culture into infrastructure projects or other things, that it's not necessary. And, I feel this is one of those things where I am absolutely sure we will see some pushback. And, it often occurs on social media, which is neither here nor there. But I think, I don't know, what I find really lovely about incorporating First Nations components just into daily life is that, it's not, I don't know, I feel like there's sometimes this impression around it that it's trying to say that that people who are not Indigenous belong here less, or that they're not welcome. And I just feel that it's a misinterpretation. It's like, we're already here, we're not going anywhere, but people were here before us. And I think that acknowledging that in everyday life, in infrastructure projects, with language, with naming things, dual naming things, I don't know, it's not really hurting anyone, and it's in many ways it is the very least that we can do. I feel that it adds a real depth and flavour to infrastructure projects, especially when it's done well, which I know it will be, because Jara and Jandak will be, taking the lead on it, and I trust that they know what's best, given that we are all on Jara land. I think what is proposed here is, it will elevate it beyond what it could be otherwise. And I think I always get a bit worried whenever anything comes through of a First Nations nature, because I find that inherently, especially on the internet, that that real surge in racism, or just kind of, I don't know, discomfort, confusion, anger, all of the things are expressed. But I think it's just, I don't know, it's just how we can acknowledge that this was, other people were here before us, and that, yes, we're here now, and we're all, one community. But it's nice to have elements of Jara culture included in just our everyday life. And I think particularly, this project, which for me, I've often described it as kind of, it's the spine, everything else kind of can flow off it. I think having these inclusions will just make it that little bit more special. And I hope that, if people are feeling personally, I don't know, victimised by it somehow, or not included by it, I think maybe we just need to, I don't know, there's different ways to look at things. And I think, it's not personal. It's just about how we can get the best result that honours both the present and the past and the future. So I'm pretty excited about this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Anir. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Then Councillor Maltby. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Maddox, sorry. Lucas, you're right to provide.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Anir. Just to speak to some of the community tensions on this project, and I've picked up a bit of it online, and I've had letters written, not the Jara aspects, but just the project on a whole. And my impression is that these largely centre around the cost of the development and people comparing it to other things they'd like funded, particularly affordable housing. And I think while I share I sympathise with that, I'd love to see a whole host of projects funded, and I'd love to see similar sorts of money going into other things. This is grant funding, and we don't. We choose to put in the application, but we don't just get to spend it on whatever we want. So the decision really is, do we want to do this project, or do we not want to do this project? And I think I'm personally really excited about this project. I think Frederick Street is really, it's the pedestrian thoroughfare, the natural pedestrian thoroughfare of this central business area. And to have that activated in that way is I think just going to be fantastic. And Mechanics Lane, seeing the cultural activations of Mechanics Lane for things like Fringe has excellent possibilities as well. So while I sympathise with the frustrations, I think a lot of them are misplaced. It's not about the project necessarily, but just other items. On the inclusion of Jara artworks in this is a key component of that grant application, was that we would include and we would collaborate with traditional owners in this way, and so by doing this, it's fulfilling an essential part of our obligations in that regard. But also, I think it is a really important thing to do aside from that. And I'm sure it got into that grant because it's considered as an important thing to do. And I think Councillor Anir summed up this best, but I'll just personally what it means for sense of place and creating a unique sense of identity for the community as a community that is on Jara land. There's no better way to do that than embed permanent and lasting artifacts into our civic infrastructure. I think particularly because civic infrastructure is so dominated often by histories that were often replacing ones that we hear. So we have a lot of Gold Rush era buildings here, and that really dominates the visual the visual image and identity of this town. So it's really important to acknowledge that there's other things and other cultures that have been operating here for tens of thousands of years at the very least. So yeah, very happy to see this project move forwards. Very excited to see the Jarrah artworks embedded in it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried unanimously. And just to add on to Councillor Anea and Maddock's points, that just to add that we're in a happy position where there are several public art projects current around the Shire, and this in a way adds to the Indigenous flavour of those public art projects. Councillor Maddox spoke about the Gold Rush era heritage of the town and the towns of the Shire and the landscapes of the Shire. And really, to pick up on Councillor Anea's point about Frederick Street being a kind of an important spine through the centre of town, we just reflect that Frederick Street connects the Market Precinct, the Mostyn Street Retail Precinct, with Littleton Street shops, with Town Hall, with Community House, with Castlemaine Library, and senior sets, and up to Templeton Street and the businesses there, and to be able to embed some traditional artwork and storytelling in this spine really augments and adds to. I think it may contrast. It's a lovely juxtaposition with that Gold Rush era heritage. I think I made the point at a previous meeting that history is that conversation between the present and the past, and so I think with fresh eyes, then the works proposed here really do complement the other heritage aspects of the town, whether they're Indigenous or non. Grateful to councillors for their comments tonight. Thank you. Okay, so under 9.5, we have none, but under 9.6 organisation, we have 9.6.1 council plan, annual plan 2025-26 progress report, quarter 3. Councillor Driscoll, can I ask you to introduce this, please?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. The council plan, annual plan 2025-26, which I'll refer to as the annual plan, outlines the actions for the 25-26 financial year that will be undertaken as priorities in alignment with the strategic priorities of the council plan 25-26. Included in the annual plan are 24 current year actions. And in 25-26 quarter 3, 2 actions were completed, bringing the total number of completed actions for the 25-26 to 9. 13 actions remain on track to be completed by 30th of June 2026. However, 2 actions are behind schedule and are likely to be rolled over into the 26-27 annual plan. This report provides an update to the status of all those actions in the 25-26 annual plan. And Mayor, I would like to recommend that the council notes the council plan 25-26 progress report quarter 3.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Anea. Councillor Driscoll, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Sure, thanks, Mayor. As I mentioned, the council plan, annual plan 25-26 outlines the actions for the 25-26 financial year, and that will be undertaken as priorities. Included in that plan are 24 current actions. The quarterly report provides an update on the status of each project, its progress towards completion, if completed, the date completed, which is compared to the targeted completion date, and any overall comment. In summary, the progress report notes that 2 actions were completed in quarter 3, bringing the total actions completed to 9. 13 actions are on schedule to be completed. 2 actions are behind schedule, which we don't think are recoverable, which means they won't be completed by the 30th of June and they'll be rolled over. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Anea, do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right, Mayor.
Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Anea.
I thought that might happen. Thank you, Mayor. Honestly, Councillor Driscoll has summed it up very well. Similar to the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan, each council term, the council is required to have a council plan, as well as the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. We did that last year, which was very exciting. And now we're doing the things that we identified in the council plan to make sure that we receive frequent progress reports each quarter. And it's always really good, I think, to get the progress reports for both of these plans, because it does just keep it front of mind always. I think that, many of our decisions are driven by these two big strategic documents. And I think that can feel very overwhelming at times. So bringing it back to small, or not so small, but achievable actions that we do each year, and make sure that we're all kind of kept in the loop on, is really important. Obviously, this one, there's been identified two actions that are behind schedule and are not considered recoverable. One of them is the aged care strategy, which is not going to make the deadline due to staffing resources, which have impacted that timeframe, but will still be occurring in the next financial year. And that's obviously a very important piece of work. Everything else is either on track or behind schedule but recoverable, which is really good. And again, we're kind of closer to the end of Q4 now. This is the report for Q3, and very soon we'll be looking at a new annual plan for the council plan for the next financial year, with its own priorities that will be kept in the loop about as well. So, yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Anea. Councillor Driscoll, your right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, just want to point out a couple of things, that there's no legislative requirement for the annual plan reporting to be undertaken on a quarterly basis. We do this in the interest of transparency, and regular reporting to the community is good practice. And also that the meeting of council minutes are published on council's website and include the attachments, including this progress report, if people want to delve a bit deeper.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried unanimously. And thanks to the Corporate Reporting Officer, Sarah Smith, and Director of Corporate Services, Julie Landy, for bringing this excellent report to us. Thank you. And 9.6.2 is the 2025-26 Financial Management Report for Q3. Councillor Maltby, would you introduce this, please?
Thanks, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present the finance report for the 9-month period ended the 31st of March 2026. The finance report is presented to Council on a quarterly basis. The report was presented to the Audit and Risk Committee on the 1st of June 2026. This report provides a concise summary of financial performance against Council's budget for the period, including an explanation of any material variances. This reporting assists in monitoring Council's achievement of objectives in the financial plan 2025-2035 and annual budget 2025-2026, while ensuring that Council is financially sustainable in the long term. And I would move that Council notes the finance report for the 9-month period ended 31st of March 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Yes, slightly. Regular review of financial performance and reporting of Council's activities provides an overview as to how different programs and projects are being delivered. This reporting assists in monitoring Council's achievement of objectives in the financial plan 2025-2035 and annual budget 2025-2026, while ensuring that the Council is financially sustainable.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Thanks, Mayor. Look, the report's an excellent report, and again, it's prepared under the direction of Director Corporate Services Julie Landy and by our Manager Finance Keith Caldwell. Basically indicates we're in a sound financial position for the year to date, or for the 3 quarters. There's a few factors contributing to that. The capital expenditure's lagging a bit behind, which is not uncommon. Surprisingly enough, our staff expenses are down a little bit because of some vacancies, and also I'd note that grants are ahead of schedule, and I'd just like to acknowledge the work that our grants team does. Karen Evanant, she does a fantastic job in that space, and she's also the go-to person when it comes to some of our capital works development. So great job, thank you, Karen. The other thing, of course, that's happened on the journey in this year-to-date report is the impact of the Harcourt fire. And while council's had some expenses as a result of the fire, generally that's been funded. So we're grateful to the funding from the state and federal government for picking up the costs of some of those extra things we've had to do. And in some ways, because of the impact of the fire, it explains a little bit why our capital budget is a bit behind schedule where we'd expect it. But you know, those projects in the capital budget will all be delivered, and yeah, it's just one of those things. But the financial year-to-date figures are looking very sound, and I commend the report to you. So thank you for that, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Driscoll.
Thanks, Mayor. Just so people know, the finance report presented includes the income statement, statement of capital works in progress, the balance sheet, financial ratios, investments in the cash flow statement, and all can be read online if you want further detail. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Any other councillors like to speak to this? Councillor Maltby, your right of reply.
It's straightforward, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. All those in favour and against, and that's carried unanimously. So 9.6.3, establishing formal positions of council policy review. Councillor Maltby, can I ask you to introduce this, please?
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek the re-adoption of council's establishing formal positions of council policy. The existing policy was created in 2024 in response to a request by councillors to document their approach of not adopting a position on matters that are the subject of a referendum at a state or federal level, or are international matters over which council has no authority or responsibility. The policy also formalised the process for responding to a rising number of requests being received from other Australian local government authorities. Many of these requests related to matters which were of little direct relevance to the Mount Alexander Shire community and/or were of a relatively low priority to Mount Alexander Shire Council. The policy also provided, in instances where there may be merit in council establishing a position on a specific matter, the basis on which such a decision, that is, whether to form a position or not, would be made. The policy was initially intended to be reviewed within 12 months of adoption. However, given the extent of change in councillors arising from the 2024 election, in discussion with the new council, it was considered beneficial to delay this review. The considerations that gave rise to the creation of the initial policy remain, and reconfirming how council responds to such matters by re-adopting the policy is recommended. Following feedback from councillors, the existing policy is understood to also reflect the desired approach of the current council, and therefore no material changes are proposed. However, as an improvement to the existing process of applying the policies, councillors have indicated a desire to receive a monthly summary of the instances in which it has been used. Accordingly, when the policy is applied, a copy of the incoming correspondence and officer CEO Merrill response, as appropriate, will be included in a councillor bulletin monthly. And I would move that council adopts the establishing formal positions of council policy, and 2, notes that a monthly report on the application of the policy will be included in the councillor bulletin.
Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak further?
Mayor,
to
I'd like to propose a motion to defer.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
No, but I'll read the motion. Can we test that? Is that-
Introduce your, okay?
Yeah, or read it. Or, yeah.
Yep.
I move that council defer this matter to a future meeting to enable sufficient time for councillors to consider updates to this policy, which would achieve a better balance between the administrative efficiencies it seeks and council's ability to consider requests from our community and the broader community on their merits.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Maddock's motion?
Mayor, I'll second pro forma to enable discussion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Maddock, do you want to speak further to your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Walker and councillor colleagues for considering this. The reason that I seek to defer this is because I see a few irreconcilable issues with this policy, which I think we can fix quite easily. I have a lot of sympathy for the need to create administrative mechanisms to defend the council and our officers from being essentially overburdened by requests for comment or for advocacy. But I think the messaging to our community in this policy is a little bit off, and I've definitely received a lot of feedback since before coming on council to this effect. And having spent a lot of time with the motion now, I think it comes down to the tone and the strength of the language in the policy, which I think is a little bit misleading. And I think thanks to the CEO for clarifying some things with me earlier, but these are points that were lost on me. That while the policy uses language like this council will not establish a formal position, etc., which is very strong and absolute language, there's still very much exists a possibility of a councillor bringing a notice of motion to this council, which would fit under this and could technically be adopted by this council, and that would elicit a response from officers that would relate back to this policy, noting that that this council must not. But it's the word "must" in this sentence is just too strong. It may, the council may, because that's the true nature of this. Now, I'm not seeking to throw this out, which is why I'm seeking to defer, because I think we do need some administrative mechanism here, and I think it wouldn't be hard to achieve with a slight tweaking, where councillors may receive these requests as they come in and make calls as to whether we discuss and consider them like we do with all the others, which I'm sure all my colleagues are receiving daily. And look, I came to think of, why do I want this? It's because we have the mechanisms in this chamber to make those decisions ourselves, in that debates can be moved on if they're going too long, but with the majority support of councillors. No one councillor can weigh down this chamber in a debate that the majority don't support. No motion will get up without majority support. So we can handle these. And I just think, like, what would happen if we got a request from either the Friends of Lolotoi local organisation or from Lolotoi residents ourselves, asking us to support an initiative or appeal to our federal government to support on their behalf. And I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, directors and CEO, that the response from officers would be an emphatic, this council does not support asks of this nature. And I would hate that organisation and that community would be their first response from us. I would want that to be this council saying, do we want to debate this? Do we want to offer support here? And that be the first piece of correspondence that organisation receives. I think I'm happy to rest it there, Mayor, and accept the decision of the group on this.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Can I ask at this point if there's opposition to Councillor Maddock's motion to defer? Thanks, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. For several years, the council has been requested to advise its position on specific matters that are being raised at a state, national and international political level. In each instance, the immediate previous and current council has concluded that the Mount Alexander Shire Council taking a position on such matters is not appropriate. Equally, the likely extent to which the council's opinion influences the outcome determined by decision makers is in such remote and/or complex matters raises concern about the value in using scarce council resources on such endeavours. It's the things that are being asked or suggested could be asked have nothing to do, in my opinion, with local government. If you want to go and play politics, go and do it.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Any councillors like to speak in favour of this, of Councillor Maddock's motion? Councillor Driscoll, sorry, Councillor Anea.
I'm not sure yet, but I'm just say what I'm thinking. I know that we need something like this because the responsibilities that local government already has locally are huge, and adding anything else in is just impossible most of the time. I think we don't, we've talked about it a fair bit tonight. We don't have the resourcing to do much more than we're already doing. And I think the extent to which councillors, council staff, council in general are lobbied over certain matters, which often are of a political nature, can be quite extreme. I know that, look, they can have a real impact on things and on people, particularly when I think about especially when I know that there's so little that council can do, and that any time we spend, any time, money, resources, anything that we spend on things that we can't affect, that's got to be weighed up against what our core purpose is, what we can affect, what our duty is as local government and as councillors. I really hate being lobbied across the board. I find it intrusive and weird. And I wish people would just trust in representative democracy, which is, what we're all doing here. We're elected democratically and we serve on behalf of our community. But I think increasingly people don't actually want that. They just want us to do whatever they want us to do. And that's the pressure of that, I think, is getting more. I think the way that councillors and council staff are being treated by people who think that we should be doing more about certain things that we really can't. I think that can be very difficult sometimes and put you know, an unfair burden on us all. But I also sympathise, I think, with what Councillor Maddock is saying around the language in the policy. So in that way, I'm not seeking to stop having a policy like this, because I think it is important. I think it is, and I think I see it as more than just this like administrative thing. I see it as preserving council core purpose when, you know, everyone is pushing us constantly to do more and to do more and to weigh in on, things that I sometimes feel that it would be irresponsible for us to weigh in on, because it is not council's responsibility and it is not our job. And I don't think we should be telling people in our community how they should think. I think that it's really important for me personally that I'm not telling other people how they should think, because I want other people to be able to think however they want, as long as it's not hurting other people. So I am a little bit conflicted about this, because I like the policy. I like that it just goes, look, all of this stuff is, you know, it exists, and there are demands on on council that sometimes we just can't do for whatever reason, whether it is resourcing, whether it is going to cause more damage within the community than it otherwise would. I think some of the things we're asked to weigh in on and pick a side are incredibly divisive. And we know that our community is not one thing. It is made up of so many different things. And, you know, that's why making decisions on behalf of the whole community is so hard, because the whole community doesn't always think the same thing. I think removing this, it's just, you know, it's just a little bit of breathing room for me. I remember what led to this policy. It was about kangaroos, and it was a bad time. It was a bad time because we were lobbied to step into territory that really we knew that we couldn't have much effect on, and in doing so, we also you know, it seemed, I think, to members of our community that we picked a side. And I think, for the most part, council should not be picking sides. I know that we have to make decisions, but I hope that the decisions we make, you know, we can explain how we reach them and how they demonstrate the broadest and greatest benefit to the whole. So I'm still not sure. I think I would be open to addressing the language. I think that's where I am at, but I would like the intent to remain, and I would hate, because I understand what you're saying, that, you know, that one councillor does not have the power to, you know, to push through, I guess, their own ideals and their own values, and you know, chew up time and resources. But we kind of also know that if we open that gate too much, the demands on us will become greater than I know that I personally could bear, because I did not take this job because I wanted to be a politician. I have never wanted that. I am not interested in politics. I'm here because I care about community. And I feel so pressured sometimes to do more than I am comfortable with, because I know that this community is not one thing. So I would be willing to consider looking at the language, but I don't want to have to be more put upon than I already am, because it is already very hard. And I think we need to be realistic about what local government can do, what we should do, and what it is responsible for us to do as councillors. So that probably wasn't very helpful, but that's what I'm thinking about it right now.
Thank you, Councillor Anir. Councillor Driscoll, and then Councillor.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't support Councillor Maddock's motion, because I call myself a local councillor. I believe the issues are local. Under the Local Government Act 2020, Part 2, Division 1, Clause 8, says that the role of a council is to provide good governance in its municipal district for the benefit of well-being of the municipal community. And I feel that. And also with this policy, it gives you some guidance, but Councillor Maddock, you can bring a notice of motion anytime you like, as you have done in the past. So if you do feel strongly about a lot of these issues, bring your motion and see how you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Driscoll. Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, the policy's been working since we adopted it initially. I feel it's actually worked quite well. I haven't seen any instances where people have wanted to bring debate. There's plenty of opportunities at our briefing sessions to discuss issues, and if a number of councillors want to bring an issue, that this policy allows for that. But I think in terms of we need to focus on the things that we can control, and some of the external pressures that are brought to bear on local government, that they're not issues that we can control or influence greatly. So I'm happy with the policy in its existing form. So I'm not supporting Councillor Maddox's motion to defer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Walker, would you like to speak now?
I need your guidance. I seconded pro forma to enable debate. If I was to speak, it would not be in support. Can I do that or not?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't support it for two reasons. One is because we've been discussing this for 10 months. I first raised it in August when I was looking at moving a motion on Hiroshima, and I think there's been more than adequate time to have discussed it rather than coming to tonight. In that time, my own focus and position has shifted a bit based upon learnings. I am happy to be lobbied, even though I'll make an independent decision, but I think there's been some interventions that have gone beyond lobbying. And while it can be nice to carry something that sort of does make us feel good, as others are saying, in my time as councillor, I'm learning we are time pressed, our officers are time pressed, and we need to focus on those things we can have a direct impact on. So while I'm sympathetic that the wording is a bit harsh, my consideration became, let's live with that because it does work, and let's move on to those issues which we can affect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Maddock, your right of reply.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for considering. I think I've covered most of my points, but I'll just do two more, which is on your Hiroshima proposal, Councillor Walker. There are issues out there that are international in nature, but have a universal appeal and are very important to a sizable majority of the community. I get that there's smaller issues that are less universal that can cause a lot of division and stress, but there are some that don't do that. They actually do the opposite, and that they can unify us and they can actually benefit our municipality through celebration of shared values. And I won't go into, I'm thinking peace, I'm thinking nuclear, non-proliferation, upholding of human rights. These things do not need to be divisive and aren't always divisive. I think just by the makeup of our council, that if something was divisive and taking up time, that we would probably opt to go with something along the lines of how we've been operating, a position with how we've been operating. I agree, we're very restrained. We can't be throwing resources at every cause that approaches us. And also, if you were to support this deferral, Councillor Anir, I'd be very committed to maintaining something which maintains the intention of this, to enable some buffering between councillors and officers and these sorts of requests, but re-looking at the wording, potentially softening wording, potentially introducing a new mechanism to assess them that comes via council laws prior to a decision, but not necessarily requiring our input into it if we don't want to. Thank you, Mayor. I'll rest it.
Thank you, Councillor Maddox. So we'll put the Councillor Maddox deferral motion to the vote. All those in favour and opposed? So that motion is defeated. So we'll return to the original motion as printed. And Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak further to your motion?
Sorry. Basically, and I agree with Councillor Anea, we're here, and Councillor Driscoll and Councillor Walker and Councillor Cordy, we're here for local government. And there is opportunities if there is a major issue that you want to bring up, bring it up. But don't go changing policy because you don't like the word. Common sense says that as a local government councillor, we should be looking after our community first. And if you want to go in life and save the moon or whatever, don't bring it to the table here.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Can I ask if we have any opposition to this motion at this point? Thanks, Councillor Maddox. Councillor Cordy, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
Reserve my right. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maddox, would you like to speak now?
Yeah, just briefly, because I think you probably know what I think. But just on closing, I just think that this policy and its wording sends the wrong message to our community. I think there's a risk in this policy, and it's a risk that communicates that we're a council that doesn't care about issues beyond our borders. And I think that's not the case. I don't believe that, and I don't believe that of the officers or the people around this table. What we need is a administrative tool to contain some of this. I don't think we need a statement as heavy and as absolute of this when it's not the case. As Councillor Maltby just highlighted, we can bring these to the table. So I don't know why we have a policy that says we can't. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Maddox. Any other councillors like to speak to this motion? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I think the policies, since its original adoption, it's worked quite well. We do have flexibility in the council chamber to debate and discuss issues that are broader, but it gives us a very clear starting point, and it's working quite well. So I'm happy to support it in its current form. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Cordy. Councillor Maltby, your right of reply.
The policy does allow, as I said earlier, people to bring matters up even if they're not local government matters. But there's no point in changing the wording when it's been successful.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Let's put it to the vote then. All those in favour and against, and that's carried.
You want a division?
Certainly, let's have a division. So again, all those in favour. So that's Councillors Maltby, Cordy, Walker, Anea, Driscoll and Hayden. And opposed is Councillor Maddox. And that's carried. Thank you, councillors. Delegates' reports. Councillor Maddox, can I ask you for your delegates' report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Got to get a bit of a tone shift. But honestly, thank you, councillors, for considering that, and I respect the decision. So a few things on my list, not that many. Attended an incredible working bee on Sunday. Was it Sunday? Yes, Sunday at Lala Bagawa at the mountain bike park, which is now half reopened, and a lot of work done. I've never seen so many people there. It was absolutely packed. Multiple mountain biking clubs and everyone out with their tools, fixing up it's been half of it was impacted directly by the fires, and hope that we get some of those other trails open very soon. The World Cup at the event at the Goods Shed was incredible. Australia versus Takaya was good on the soccer club for putting that event on for everyone. They do an incredible job there. Running that club must be epic with the numbers and the games, but then to do events like this is also great. Attended a protest at the ANZ in Bendigo. A lot of people, mainly people from this community, very concerned about ANZ's continued funding of fossil fuel projects, the biggest lender and funder of fossil fuel projects of an Australian bank in this country, and proud that our community stand up and protest that. Also attended the main game. I won't speak to these so much, but main game, Sorry Day, was incredibly impactful. A housing talk on the 23rd, which is another good show of community turning up and very much aligned with the objectives of this council. And also a really nice day with the signing of the deed of trust for our affordable housing trust was another highlight for me. I just wanted to read a brief statement based on some events that have happened outside this shire, so I hope Maltby will humour me on this one. Councillor Maltby, thank you, Councillor Driscoll, which is to do with some pretty offensive and horrendous billboards targeting our Premier, Jacinta Allen. The horrendous treatment of our Premier in recent weeks should not go unnoted in this chamber. Criticism, accountability and robust debate is an important part of our democracy, and these debates and protests promote honesty and openness. There is much I don't like about the decisions of this Labor government, but there is a world of difference between healthy, robust debate and what can and must be called out as sexist abuse. And let's be clear, sexist abuse or abuse of any kind has no place in our political discourse or society. Misogyny has no place in our political discourse or society. And I condemn in the strongest terms any sexist or misogynistic attack on any side of politics, including on our Premier.
Thank
and
you.
That concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Maddock. Councillor Walker, do you have a delegate's report for us?
Yes, Mayor, and support Councillor Maddock's comments, and if anything turns up in our Shire Trust, it's dealt with quickly. I did a listening post on 4th of June, do them in Chewton, Elphingston, Taradale. The delights have all got to be outside, so in winter I freeze and in summer I burn, but anyway, we get through that. It's always good to catch up to people and hear what they have to say and have discussions with them. And secondly, if I can give a little promo, it's outside the Shire, but tomorrow night, Star Cinema Eaglehawk, because it's Refugee Week, is showing a superb movie called A Good Lie, of children who had to flee the war in South Sudan. Many of them have got to Australia, and I believe a female representative of the Lost Boys of Sudan will be speaking. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any other councillors? Councillor Anir, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I have had a couple of listening posts, 3 listening posts in the last couple of weeks, all at the Kent Reserve, but 3 different kind of events, I guess. I went to the footy and netball on a Saturday, it was fantastic. I went back again on the Sunday for the main game, also amazing. And then last Wednesday went for the Wednesday Farmers Market in the evening. Really nice to see the space being used by, lots of different aspects of community, I guess. There was not the same cohort there on any occasion. And I think because of that, I was each day I was able to have different conversations, covered a lot of ground, particularly at the farmers market, where, really went far and wide with conversations. Look, when I planned the listening post at the Kent Reserve, I thought it would be, I thought we may have different news to share. So I was pretty tense about going and spending, hours of time there, given that there's a bit of tension within aspects of the community regarding Camp Reserve at the moment. And I'm happy to report that there was only one small amount of unpleasantness, which was fine. But I was able to have really robust conversations with a number of different people who use the Camp Reserve for various activities. And I guess if I can kind of pass some of that back to my colleagues, like the real sense I get from people, particularly, I guess, people who've been associated with the Camp Reserve for, you know, a while, is just kind of tiredness and confusion. And yeah, look, I think there's some people out there feeling very hurt. But at the same time, you know, the fact that none of that came across as you know, aggressive or abusive behaviour, and that I was able to have some really fantastic conversations about kind of the different journeys people had been on with the space. I think, you know, what is really nice, and I always find this, and I think it's one of the, you know, one of the nice things about living in a smaller country place is that kind of generational stuff. So, you know, you'll meet an older person and they'll tell me that they used to play a sport at the Camp Reserve, and then, you know, their daughter or son also did, and then their grandson or granddaughter also does. And I think that's really nice. And yeah, just the different people you see there at the main game, which is always just such a hoot. And then again at the farmers market, which again, completely different atmosphere, but just you know, the space being used by community for community. So I really enjoyed those listening posts a lot, which, you know, I don't always. I think the other one a couple of weeks ago, I was able to attend a library board meeting, which is always a bit of a joy because I love the library. A couple of, you know, biggish things going on there in terms of we adopted the 26-27 budget, which is exciting. Really, you know, the libraries are doing okay. One of the beauties of being a collaborative corporation is that we are all, us and our three partner councils are all sharing the load. But I think, and look, I'll never miss an opportunity to say this, but what we're increasingly seeing after, you know, 4+ years of frozen state government funding is that that burden, the gap is being passed onto council more and more. And while the Library Corp is in, you know, good financial shape, there is only so long that will continue under a frozen funding, and local government will be picking up the pieces. I think we all understand the benefit and value of libraries, and that they are more than just books now. And I think there is broad understanding of that at a state level as well. But what we really need is the resourcing to go alongside that, because particularly some of the kind of social issues affecting libraries are very challenging and require more than we're able to do right now. I think the other exciting in some ways, finally, we're getting very close to transitioning to a new entity type, as we're required to do under the Local Government Act this year, I guess, sometime very soon, probably. We'll be transitioning to that new entity, and along with that will come a new name and a new logo for the Goldfields Library Corp as a whole, which, you know, is an opportunity, I think, to do something nice and potentially have a little bit of fun. So that will be happening in the coming months as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ernie, and thanks, councillors, for those delegates' reports. Councillors and viewers can see the meetings attended by the CEO and myself as tabled. I just want to pick out a couple. The Guildford Bial Honouring Day a few weekends ago was a remarkable event. I don't think I've ever seen so many people in Guildford as on that day. It was extraordinary. I know several of my fellow councillors joined me there. And I thought it was a really wonderful demonstration of of First Nations leadership, the way that event was managed and the way elements of traditional and contemporary culture were blended really beautifully with a broader Indigenous and non-Indigenous audience or community to make a really powerful and quite a lengthy event that celebrated so much about First Nations culture, but also about contemporary Guildford culture. Another one I want to mention is that I was very lucky to attend the volunteer awards ceremony at the Market Building at the Visitor Information Centre here in Castlemaine. And I know all of us around this table are committed volunteers. And so we know that what we put in as volunteers is nothing compared to what we get out of volunteering. About 30% of the Shire's residents volunteer regularly on a weekly basis. Another area where perhaps the Shire punches above its weight. If you're watching this and you're not involved as a volunteer, I encourage you to get involved. Life will be richer and you'll help enrich the lives of those around you. It's so lovely to meet and to hear the stories of such a diverse range of volunteers at the Market Building that day, from members of our own youth advisory group right through to people in their 80s who are volunteering regularly. It was a really, really wonderful day. Councillor Anir mentioned listening posts, and I've been lucky to conduct some listening posts too. And like Councillor Anir, I was fortunate to be at the Camp Reserve for the football and netball home games on that Saturday, and then I got to toss the coin for the start of the main game the following day. And while it's notable, as Councillor Anir pointed out, different cohorts of people, but I was happy to note more kind of crossover on that weekend than previous years. But I also wanted to encourage, I've made this point on my little videos, that the feedback we get from the community, no matter how robust or strenuous it's expressed to me, is welcome. I encourage people to give us your feedback, whether it's on the Camp Reserve or any other of the topics facing us in the Shire at the moment. And I thank those people who brought their views to me, like Councillor Anir. They were strong views, but they were put to me respectfully and politely, and I'm grateful for that. The Jazz Festival was fantastic, and it was, again, hats off to Callum McClure for the programming this year, and to our Councillor Walker for your role on that with that festival. Again, the Jazz Festival is another example of volunteers in action, and a fantastic world-class event that could not be achieved without the dedication of so many volunteers. As I said, you can read the full list if you're interested here. CEO, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Thanks very much, Mayor. Can I just first start by saying thank you to you. Thank you very much for all of your words earlier. They mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do that for me. It's quite a privilege to get to be a local government CEO in its own right, just full stop. It's an incredible privilege, and I feel very lucky to have been able to do that for the last 10 years here. It's even better when you get to work with good people who you can believe in and who you can trust want to do the best for their community, and you've shown that to me again and again and again as a team, that you have hard discussions with each other, but you find a way through them, and you find a way to do collectively what you believe is the best thing for the community, and you all inform each other's thoughts on what that means on any given matter too. And I don't think from an officer point of view you can ask for much better than that. That mutual respect, that and trust that has enough in it that lets you do tough things together and find a way through them together, and with us as an executive team as well. Your respect for us is deeply appreciated, and my respect for those people, as well as one who's not here. We've got Kath Skinner joining us for the next 7 or 8 months in the organisation, and on the back of Lisa Knight off on holidays at the moment and leaving in the next month or so as well. An incredible executive that we have now, and with Lisa and the previous people who we've had in our executive team over the 10 years that I've been here, supported by a phenomenally good leadership team that just makes me proud every day. on the back of a lot of staff who make me proud every moment just about that I hear about things. It's what they do for our community is just the most wonderful thing to hear about, and I do get to hear a lot about that, and I just couldn't be happier about that and more grateful to all of the people in our organisation that do what they do for our community all the time. And equally, I'm so grateful for almost all of our community as well. And so thanks to them as well. Just in this list that I've got, I did want to note that absolutely, and you talked about tough things that are happening beyond our boundaries as well as inside of our boundaries when you talked about the budget. And thank you again for all of the work that you did as a team to get that, as many of you said, even tougher budget than ever sorted out this year. Really appreciate the work and effort and thought that you put into that. But for all of those challenges, I think one of the things I like about this list this month, Mayor, it's got a lot of hope in there. It's got a lot of good things that are happening in there, not just from a community perspective, but in our partners in Lisa Chesters and Marie Edwards, who were there on multiple occasions with us since the last meeting, announcing funding into this community. The meetings that we had with people like Flowserve, the Australian-New Zealand director, about what they want to be doing in our community more, what they want to do more of in our community, how they see opportunity in our community. Equally, the passion of workspace that never goes away and what they want us to keep pushing for to make happen at Eddy Street even more than it already does. The Kaiser Reef people who we, Mayor, and also Michael Annear went and visited, got to see what they wanted to do and how passionate they are about the possibilities in our Shire and the future for our Shire as well, along with a tourism development opportunity that probably we're still trying to come to terms with, Mayor, I think, with what was talked about there. So much interest, so much excitement about this could happen in Mount Alexander Shire. And I think when we are thinking about how tough things are, it's also worth having a look at lists like that and other things and remembering, but we're doing pretty well, actually. We're bringing some things to this community that are really important and pretty significant. So I hope that is something that you get from these lists from time to time as well, Mayor. But I deeply thank you all for the time that I've had to share with you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Darren. Thanks, Chief. So moving on to item 11, notices of motion. 11.1, notice of motion 007-2026, water standpipes, review of number, location and accessibility of standpipes in Mount Alexander Shire. Do I have a motion, councillors? Okay, so out of respect for Councillor Hastwell, I note that there is a lot of passion around the table for this motion, but I think it's probably the best way to proceed that we deal with this when Councillor Hastwell is in the room, where she can speak with the force and eloquence that only she can bring to this motion. So this motion will come back to a future meeting of council. So then at 12, at urgent special business, we have none. And at 13, confidential items, can I ask Councillor Maltby to introduce this item, please?
These reports are confidential in accordance with section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, which permits the meeting to be closed to consider confidential information. And I've moved the council closes with ordinary meeting of council 16th of about the person or their personal affairs.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. All those in favour and against? And thank you. And at 9:04, I declare the meeting closed.